But why are they doing that? Why have they demonized the Tea Party? They've demonized the Tea Party because it's out of the box. It's a different way to solve problems. Same thing with the libertarian movement. It's out of the box. They can't control it. You see, what's happening right now, whether it's in your home, in business, or in the country, it's the idea that I control you. Television. They control what time you sit down and watch a show. Well, they didn't like TiVo because you could watch it any way you wanted to watch it. It's authoritarians that try to grab things. In our schools with the kids, they teach you, they're teaching your kids. Now, is this anti-gun? Well, yes, this is an anti-gun where they call the cops and say, oh, you know, Johnny was doing this with his fingers. And the cops stand there and verify that this is a dangerous weapon. This does have a lot to do with the Second Amendment. It is about guns. But it's more about not fighting the system. It's more about teaching our kids, even though this makes no sense. A 5-year-old knows this is not a dangerous weapon, and all of us know that, all of us. So why are they doing it? Because they're teaching our kids, don't you dare step out of line, even if it doesn't make any sense. Well, if you force people to color in the box, then you don't have the chance to be you. And you feel the problems are too big. And you just shut up. Whether you're talking about politics or your business, doesn't matter. It is David and Goliath right now. And everybody is saying, David, sit down. You can't do it. Look at the size of this. I'd rather have no friends and maintain my integrity. I'd rather have no money and be who I really am. No one wanted to fight Goliath. They were terrified of him. But David stepped forward. He was all alone. He had no armor. He had no sword. But he also had no fear. He was fighting in a radically different way. He wasn't going to rely on his sword or his shield like everybody else, and everybody told him. He was going to rely on faith. People in Washington right now are fighting a radically different way. They are not compromising. They're going full throttle. And it will lead to fundamental transformation, one way or another. You want to win? You want to win in your home, in your church, in your country, in your business? You want to, I don't care if it's in your personal life. You got to change your thinking. Last week we had the author of The Art of Being Unmistakable. He was a surfer and made an awful lot of sense. If you missed that or you haven't read the book, go and grab the book. Tonight I want to tell you about somebody else who knows tipping points and knows great change. Malcolm Gladwell. I want to bring him in to further the insight of what we started about really a couple of weeks ago with Mike Rowe. Because it's not about politics. I think there's a political parallel through all of it, but it's bigger than politics, as everything usually is. Because what will come in the future will either enslave us or set us free. Which do you choose to be? Tonight, Underdogs, Misfits, and the Art of Battling Giants with Malcolm Gladwell next. All right, I want to bring in Malcolm Gladwell. He is a staff writer of The New Yorker and author of David and Goliath, Underdogs, Misfits, and the Art of Battling Giants. Here to explain why underdogs win and how pain actually helps us. I'm a good friend of David Neeleman from JetBlue.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about, in your book, you talk about people who, have dyslexia or ADD, and I know that to be true. I know that to be true. Explain.
Yeah, there's this really astonishing fact about dyslexia, which is that here we have a disability, and many people with this disability are worse off for not being able to read or read easily. But there's a small group of people who appear to be better off. And so when we look, for example, at entrepreneurs, we do studies of large groups of successful entrepreneurs, we find that an astonishingly high percentage of them have dyslexia. Your friend David Neilman, one of them. But the list is this long. Richard Branson, Charles Schwab. I could go on and on and on. And when you talk to those guys, they will tell you that they have succeeded as entrepreneurs not in spite of their dyslexia, but because of it.
I know.
And that's the fascinating fact.
Yeah.
And they have, what they've done is because they couldn't read, they were forced to develop other strategies that put them, at the end of the day, better off, further ahead than they would have been. I'm sure he will tell you about.
Oh, he has.
How he got through school.
Yeah, and he clearly knows that is what pushed him over the edge. I am riddled with ADD and can't pay attention for more than 2 minutes, and everybody looks at that as a bad thing now.
Yeah,
that's what I'm able to run my company because I've managed it. I mean, some people can't manage it, I guess, but learn how to manage it, you know? I talked to a doctor one time and he said, don't want to be with you in the map room because we'll never get the hell out of there. He said, however, in the foxhole, I'm going to be standing right next to you because you'll process everything, you'll see everything. Yeah. But we, in today's society, we take everything, we make it into a problem.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that what's interesting about your attitude towards your ADD is what interested me about all of these successful dyslexics is that, so what's different about them? What causes some people to be defeated by a disability and others, David Neilman, to find the strength in that? It has to do with how they interpret what they've been given. So Neilman, I'm sure, or you with your ADD, it never occurred to you that this was something that was wrong with you.
It's just the way you are.
It's the way you are. And your initial impulse was, how can I use this to make myself a better person?
Well, can I give another example? I don't mean to make this about me, but I know me really well. I'm an alcoholic. And for a long time I felt sorry for myself. Oh, I had tragic childhood and everything else. My father said to me, he's a baker, and he said, son, I got some stuff in the oven. He said, call me back tonight. He said, I want you to make a list of all because you're right. Oh my gosh, you've had a terrible life. He said, make a list of all the things that have gone wrong in your life, will you? And he said, I've got to go get the stuff out of the oven. Call me tonight. I called him back about 3 minutes later and I said, you knew, didn't you? And he just laughed. He said, I don't have anything in the oven. He knew when I started making the list, I would go, wait a minute. But if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have happened. And it spun my whole viewpoint, that if you can sit and whine about it, you know, or you could say, oh, I'll never get out of this trap, or you can pick yourself up and do it. So what is the difference? What makes us? Do you know?
That's the great unanswerable question. It's the question I want people to get at by reading my book. I can't provide the answer, though. I mean, books can only, I think books properly raise questions, and people have to answer that for themselves and say, and look at their own life and the way they dealt with adversity and come to a personal answer. I don't think you can come to one for everyone.
But there's, I mean, what you come to the conclusion, and this is so politically incorrect now, what you come to by reading this and by thinking about it is, there is no one-size-fits-all, and there's no way to save everybody, and it is about the individual, not about the collective, and you can't think that way.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, there's a chapter in his book on this guy, Emil Freireich, who's an extreme example of what we're talking about. One of the greatest oncologists of the 20th century. He's the man who started. Many people were involved with the cure for childhood leukemia, but he was the one who got the ball rolling and did all of the extraordinary man. Still in his 80s, lives in Houston. He had a childhood that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I mean, an unspeakable childhood that would defeat 99 out of 100 people. Father commits suicide when he's very young, grows up in abject poverty in the worst part of Chicago during the Depression, terrible schools. I mean, you name it. And his reaction to it was, he survived that childhood, stood up and said, nothing can defeat me now. I've seen the worst the world can offer me.
You ever talk to Anderson Cooper about his life?
Yeah.
And his, what he's, he made the choice, lost his brother, lost his father, he's watching his mom, who was, and realized all of this is going to be gone because she's not an adult.
Yeah.
All this guy, and he was sitting in my office one time, and we were sitting in New York, and there was a skyscraper, and he said, "Boy, the world ever breaks down." I mean, this is not the conversation you have with me. You know, the world ever breaks down. That building's the building to be in. And I said, "What?" And he said, "No, that building. Look at that building. The way that's built." And I said, "What are you even talking about?" And he said, "I've been in war zones. I've seen it all."
Yeah.
And I started talking to him about it and said, "Why did you do this?" He said, "Because I wanted to know I would survive.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to survive anything."
Yeah.
There's something unique there.
Yeah. Well, you know, a big part of this is faith. I mean, David and Goliath, and it starts with a biblical story, but it ends with stories about people who are possessed of great religious faith. And
Okay. So let's.
you want to get to that?
Let me take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
Back in a minute.